Good visuals, good gameplay, great soundtrack, and a great story. Not many games are able to do this, but NieR Automata is one of them. As a game that I wasn't really into too much, but a game that I was curious about, NieR Automata definitely surprised me. It was a game that I didn't expect to be my favorite game on the PS4, as I would thought maybe Kingdom Hearts 3 or Persona 5, mainly the two games that I bought the system for, would be my two favorite games. But instead, NieR Automata beat them both out. Now, you start NieR Automata as a android named 2B, and it is the war against the androids versus the robots, as the robots have taken over Earth, and you know that the humans are on the moon and they have evacuated, and so it's your job to destroy the robots on Earth so that the humans can go back on Earth. And there's also aliens involved too, and yeah, I don't really want to spoil too much, but the story is a little confusing, but it's not anything too wild. Now, like I said before, you start off as 2B, and there is ground combat and there's flying combat. You start off with flying combat for some weird reason, and there's different modes in flying combat. There's kind of the top-down view where you're just flying and shooting, and then there's the kind of upright view where you're kind of standing and then you use the right stick to aim where to shoot, and then you kind of move around with the left stick. And they're both they both feel pretty good, and they aren't really the main focus of the game. There's only a few segments where you are flying in the flight unit and battling, but most of the time you're on the ground fighting. Now, NieR Automata does a great job of just having this great kind of hub overworld where the world is very simplistic and easy to navigate and just fun to run around in, as it is the city ruins, and there's also the desert, but the desert's more vast and big, but the main part is the city ruins of finding treasure chests and visiting these abandoned buildings and all this great stuff. And then you have the resistance camp and Pascal's resistance and even the amusement park, which is so great, and each little area has its own little theme to it, and it's all just honestly great. And you have, in the main ground combat, you have your square attacks, or I guess if you're playing the Xbox version it's different, but this is for the PS4 version. Your square attacks are your normal fast attacks, while your triangle attacks are more strong and slower. And you have two different weapons, one for your strong attacks and one for your light attacks. And you also have a dash, which is I think was R2, or I think it was L2, it was one of the two. And then I think the other one was to lock on. And then you have L1, I think, to use your little drone guy or pod, which always follows you around and racks up a good amount of damage as your kind of ranged helper. And it's kind of hard, but at the same time I like how you use so much of your controlled abilities. Like, most of the time I didn't really have hand cramps, but like you're like holding R2 to lock on, you're holding L1 to fire with your pod, and then you're pressing square and triangle, and it's a lot of buttons that you're pressing. But I never actually had any like hand cramps from this game, surprisingly. But after all you're pressing, you're doing a lot of work, and it's a lot to kind of focus on, knowing what button to let go of and what button to press more or to hold down constantly. And it kind of takes some time getting used to, but you get used to it later on. And then 2B has her little companion, or I guess I forget what he calls himself. Operator, yeah, operator, I think, or that might be someone else. But NieR, who is her companion, kind of helps out as well, and you can actually tell him whether to be balanced, aggressive, healer, and or I forget what the other option was. But you can also choose yourself too what you want to focus on, because throughout the game it's like an RPG. You level up, there's a bunch of items to find, there's upgrading your weapons, and there's these pods or pod chips, and these chips you can acquire onto yourself, and they can be like increasing HP, increasing speed, increasing your strong attacks, increasing your light attacks. They can be to dodge better, or to dodge more, or auto heal, which is when you are at low health, it will automatically use a small recover. And then there's also kill heal, which you get later on in the game, and makes things a lot easier, which every time you kill an enemy you recover a good amount of HP. And all these come out helpful, but you get to choose whether you want what you want and what you don't want. So you can even take out stuff like not even being able to lock on to enemies to save up some space for something else. You can also take out your OS chip, which kills you instantly. So you can do that too. But yeah, you can choose whether you want a balanced moveset, aggressive moveset, or I guess buffs, or a more defensive buffs. So really cool in that case. But going back to the OS chip, take out the OS chip, that's actually one of the endings. Yeah, there are 26 different endings, one for each letter of the alphabet. I think there are 5 that are main story ones, but the other 21 are all you have to find out yourself. The only thing that I don't like about this is that these endings, when you die, or when you enhance, or not enhance, but experience these endings, you have to go all the way back to your save point. So if you didn't save for like the last hour or whatever, and you get an ending that you didn't mean to get, you have to go all the way back to that last save, which is the only thing that I don't really like about all those different endings and stuff. But other than that, it's so great that there's so many endings. And you're probably wondering, but don't you have to go backtrack and stuff to get these endings? And the answer really is no. Once you beat the game, you're actually able to use chapter select and see the sections that you can get the different endings, and basically go in that area and try and find those endings yourself, or you can look them up online. But yeah, some of them take a lot of work, others are pretty easy, like taking out the OS chip, and they really do enhance the story, as it does give some of them give a good amount of backstory. Now you don't just play as 2B. After you beat the game, you get to play as NieR. Now, you played through the whole game pretty much the same thing as NieR, except you have this new hacking ability with his triangle. So he doesn't have strong attacks, instead he's able to hack people, and you're also able to open these special chests that you weren't before with his hacking ability, which is really cool. And it kind of reminded me of Bravely Default, but Bravely Default did it bad, but NieR Automata did it good, so I guess Square Enix learned. Because in Bravely Default, there were these blue chests that you couldn't unlock no matter what, but after beating the game, I think the 3rd time, or the 4th time, or the 5th time, something like that, Bravely Default is really weird, but after beating it for a good amount of times, you finally get the chest key to unlock those blue chests and getting some of the best items in the game. But in this game, you just beat the game once, you play as NieR, you hack it in, and you pretty much go through the entire story again, but you do learn some new things about the robots, because since 9S is able to hack the robots. You get to see their inner thoughts and learn more about the story, about their backstory, and about the story in general. And although that part is kind of boring, and I do have to admit 9S's story is kind of boring, but if you take a break from the game, then you kind of come back and you, I guess, forget about it a little bit and then play the game over again with 9S. But after you beat it with 9S, then you get A2 story, which is a character that you meet later on in the game, and you're able to play as her. And then with that, you're actually able to switch between 9S and A2, which is like the second half of the game. And it's really cool, especially like the boss leading up to the final boss, like the second to last boss. It was so good. One of my favorite bosses of all time, I do have to admit. It's basically this boss where you fight and you have 9S in this fight unit shooting them down, and then you constantly swap back and forth between A2 and 9S. While A2 is destroying these people on this elevator that's going up because they're racing each other to get to the top of this tower. So you're constantly switching between A2 and 9S, defeating this enemy that's blocking your way to get to the top, while A2 is going up with this elevator and she's defeating all the enemies there, and then it'll swap back and forth between her and 9S, defeating this one enemy that's climbing up the wall as he's flying up in his flight unit. It's really cool, one of my favorite boss fights of all time, to be honest, and it's awesome. Plus the music is really good on that boss fight as well. Although if you die, you have to start lower, which kind of sucks. But other than that, really good boss fight. And talking about boss fights, this game has a lot of good boss fights, and they have a lot of good soundtracks for those boss fights, which is really fun. And this game is hard. I do have to admit, it is hard when you start. But however, when you get the better chips and stuff, just like in any RPG, if you get like the overpowered chips, you're pretty much set and you don't really have to worry about too much. But there is some grinding involved if you want to get those good chips. And probably, like I said, the best one is like the kill chip or whatever, and the auto heal. Because when you get like enough, when you have like a lot of recoveries and you have a lot of enemies around, you can just heal yourself with just killing the enemies with KO heals or whatever. It makes the game a lot easier. But initially in the start, it is pretty tough, and I got a quite good amount of game overs here and there. But once you get the auto heal, you're pretty much good, and the KOs heal as well. Two really good items or chips that you should equip if you want to get good and I guess have a chance against some of these bosses or enemies. And some of the missions are also hard too, as there's a lot of side missions to this game, and some of them can be quite difficult, but others can be quite easy, depending on, I guess, where it is, or how difficult it is, or like what it is, like whether it's a fetch quest or a bounty quest or something like that. So yeah, but overall, really great game. Like I said, beautiful soundtrack, probably one of my favorite soundtracks of all time. Beautiful visuals. It has a really, really intense story, especially towards the end. It gets really intense, and honestly, just such a great game. And Platinum Games, they've done it again. Honestly, I feel like Platinum Games hasn't made really a bad game yet, and I'm actually getting hyped for Astral Chain, because that's coming out soon, and that's also made by Platinum Games, and just teaming up with Square Enix, they just made a great game here. Honestly recommend it. Sadly, this game isn't on the Switch, but they do have it on the Xbox, and they do have it on the PS4. And if I have to rate it, I'd probably give this game a 9.5. It was really just a ton of fun. Although there isn't too much to this game, I think I beat it in like a good 20-25 hours or something like that. 20 to 30 hours, I would say, would be beating it, which isn't too bad. It's actually pretty good. But that's me with only beating like, I I think 10 endings. I didn't get all the endings, but I did sadly look them up online. I'm sorry, but maybe I'll do that one day. I'll get all the endings and I guess platinum the game. But yeah, overall, such a great game. The characters are great too. 2B, 9S, and A2 are all great characters, and also the two alien characters, Adam and Eve. They're also really funny and really great characters as well, and have quite the backstory to them. And I loved every character, honestly. And there was a lot of twists and turns, and like I said, I never expected that this would be my favorite game on the PS4, and here we are. Not expecting it, and it turned out to be my favorite. But more on that later, because I'll probably review Persona 5 and Kingdom Hearts 3 as well, and tell you guys what I think about those games. But I think we're gonna end things there. So that is it. Like I said, NieR Automata, great soundtrack, great visuals, great story, great character, great gameplay, and it's just a game that I recommend, and hope you guys will pick up, because honestly, I can't stress enough, just such a great game. And I was hoping that this game would come to the Switch, but luckily I got a PS4 and was able to play this great game. And I was wondering what all the hype was about, and I now know it really is just a great game. It's enough said. So yeah, like I said, that's gonna be it for today, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed this review. Let me know what you guys think about NieR Automata in the comments. But until then, stay tuned for more reviews right here on Next. Bye.